Hi, my name is Noria. I've been studying animation at SVA for the past year, and now I'm not. If you're an SVA student or prospective, you might recognize me from being plastered all over their social media pages because I was a social media ambassador for them. And if you're not, you probably don't know me at all. I recently transferred from SVA to the University of Southern California for a BFA in fine arts and a double minor in cinematic arts and screenwriting. Completely changing course, completely changing majors, completely changing schools, and changing everything basically about my education and the life that I'm living currently and my goals. And I wanted to talk about why and give my personal perspective on animation school, as well as some advice I wish I knew before applying. I honestly haven't seen anyone genuinely criticize animation school for the reasons that I'm about to, and I think they're very worthwhile to discuss and address because maybe some of you out there are in a similar position as me and you're kind of questioning this whole thing, or you're starting your application journey, or you're just researching the possibility, or you are also a prospective SVA or USC student. I'm going to talk about my experience at SVA's animation program specifically, so nothing to do with any other major at the college. And that does include well-intentioned criticism. And I wanted to preface this video by saying that I obviously do not hate SVA or anybody that goes here. I don't feel any animosity towards the school at all. Me choosing to go was my decision, and I'm the only person responsible for that. I don't mean to disparage the school at all in criticizing it. I just want to discuss why I transferred, and in order to do that, it is important to talk about the negative aspects of the school that drove me to that decision. They deserve to be brought up. I talked to people from places like CalArts, SCAD, RISD, SVA, some other Cal State schools, international schools, just to kind of see what everybody thought about their respective programs, the industry, and the culture of animation school. So all of those conversations have influenced what I have decided to write here and what I am going to talk about as well. I have timestamps throughout the video, but I am going to start by talking about SVA's program and my personal opinion of it, then animation school as a whole, and then closing off with why I transferred and why I switched my major, and then the advice I have for all of you watching out there. So with that said, let's begin. When I initially applied to college my senior year, I was going through an incredibly rough time for my mental health, and just kind of everything in general. But, long story short, I only applied to 4 schools, and I was rejected from CalArts and USC, but I was accepted to Scout and SVA, and SVA gave me a merit scholarship, which is ultimately what drove my decision to go there, along with them being my second choice school overall. And despite being a very high achieving student, I had no experience with the college application process, and neither did my parents, so I was kind of lost in that regard and probably didn't do as well as I could with some more guidance. So SV's curriculum is modeled after their alumni success in TV animation showrunning, specifically referring to Rebecca Sugar, Dana Terrace, Ian Jones Cordy, and Susie Pop, who all created their own animated television shows that have all been very, very successful. Something a lot of people don't know about the animation program, though, is that it was originally a subsection of their film program, and as the degree became more popular, it separated from the film program and became its own department. As an animation major, you're required to make a minimum of 4 finished films throughout your degree. And since the animation major is technically 2D animation, it is expected that they are primarily 2D, with the exception of one stop motion film every year that gets made. And that's out of 400 students in the department total. Making 4 films a year, in my opinion, does not really teach you how to make films. It teaches us how to finish something subjective quality, and then is kind of grooming us to be exploited in the industry while the school uses those films that we destroyed our mental health and physical health to work on to promote its program with no actual benefit to us. I don't know. I don't think making films every year is necessarily a good thing, nor is it necessarily beneficial to the student. And I'll get into this in a little bit, but that's kind of a hot take because I think a lot of people are drawn to schools like CalArts and SVA because we make for films throughout our degree, but I don't think it's actually as fun or beneficial in reality as like most people, including myself, assume that it is. I would also like to say I think it's an issue rather than a pro at SVA, specifically because SVA's classes are not focused on finishing the film. It's treated more as an out of class thing rather than an in class thing, and it's also dependent on what professors you have. And things like sound design are not taught until you're already of the middle of your second film in your second year. And things like writing and editing are not really taught in depth at all in the curriculum and are mostly available as electives if they offer them, but they don't really last time I checked. This is not the case at other schools, one being Cal Arts. I know Cal Arts is very film focused in their actual classes and kind of everything you do is for the film, but that's not the case at SVA. I would also like to say that I got incredibly lucky because I had the only animation teacher that did not make you do a freshman year film. So I didn't have to do that, and I just got to watch all of my other friends suffer and not finish theirs. You are not allowed to take classes in other majors, very few exceptions. And because the animation program's curriculum has so many required classes, it's nearly impossible to do so anyway while also meeting your degree requirements and your humanities requirements. This was my least favorite part of the entire school and the animation program. The program really boasts about letting you get straight into the animation and filmmaking process without any emphasis on drawing fundamentals in the larger curriculum, with the exception of figure and perspective drawing sophomore year and your required drawing for animation class your freshman year. I can absolutely attest to the fact that SVA has some seriously incredible professors in their department, in all of their departments actually, as well as like brand new remodeled facilities for animation. I think being so industry focused is a very positive aspect of the school for most people, as well as me initially. So I cannot ever like discredit the school for that because my opinion on it in that regard is very subjective, and I will talk later as to why it ended up not being for me. However, I think combined with the culture of the school, their admissions practices, and the cost of attendance, this curriculum becomes a much, much larger issue. SVA's animation program has a reputation for being relatively selective despite the school's larger acceptance rate of around 90%. It has very little to do with actually rejecting or accepting people based on skill level and merit. I worked in admissions while at SVA, and the information has been told to me by certain people in the school, but animation selectivity is only that way because they receive more applications than any other major, and they only have roughly 500 seats in the program, or roughly 100 people per graduating class. Animation's acceptance rate has been reported to be as low as 20% for transfers, but it normally averages between 60 to 70% for first year undergraduate students. SVA rejects most people from animation as a result of having a rolling admissions process, as well as prioritizing students who are full pay and do not need merit scholarships, nor do they receive them. This is because their enrollment is drastically lower than their number of accepted students. They need to accept as many people who are as likely to go to SVA as possible, regardless of the cost. Once the animation program fills up its seats with people who are either full pay or highly skilled students on merit scholarships, they automatically reject everyone after that and defer them to other majors to keep the overall acceptance rate for the school high. This is also primarily because up until September 2025, SVA was a for-profit institution, and even though they are now technically non-profit, they still have to function business-wise as a for-profit because they do not have the large endowments or government funding yet that most historically not-for-profit colleges do. So they continue to raise tuition and they accept primarily full-pay students in order to subsidize the operating cost of the school as much as possible and to provide measly, they are, the max is like half tuition, measly merit scholarships to their students. This creates a very interesting class makeup as the skill level becomes incredibly varied because the application process does not prioritize skill as a factor of admission. SV also has special partnerships with certain art and design high schools to provide additional scholarships to their students to recruit them specifically to the school. I personally think that's unfair. They're not being offered scholarships necessarily based on need or skill level, but instead because they were already privileged enough to have received an arts education early on in their life and they have that advantage over students already. SVA does this obviously to recruit students who have very high skill level to make their school look good, like all colleges, but they do it disproportionately. I think that kind of recruitment style, prioritizing full pay and prioritizing students who already have artistic experience and then subsidizing them rather than students who are in financial need, is such a terrible, corrupt way of running your financial aid office. Speaking as somebody who did get maximum merit scholarship, did not go to an art and design high school, and is very high financial need, like full need. It's icky to me, and it's icky to a lot of other people as well. Obviously, if you went to an art and design high school, that's great for you, and if you got all the scholarships, that's great for you. It's not your fault, obviously. It's just the way that the school functions and how it divides up its own students based on their importance to the school itself for promoting it as a business and also funding it. As a result of that, there are a lot of people who come from schools where they already had animation classes or filmmaking classes. And this is where the curriculum becomes an issue because now SVA is throwing both students with a relatively low level of art skill and students with a very high level of art and animation skill into very intense animation coursework without teaching them sequentially the art fundamentals that they would need to succeed in that intense animation coursework. It doesn't make any sense to me that we have to start animating right away, but we don't even get to learn anatomy until the second semester. And then that also doesn't make any sense because most people, most freshmen in the second semester are already making a 1 minute short film, fully animated, fully colored, without being properly taught anatomy. They're trying to teach you all of these necessary important things at the same time when you require one before the other in order to do the other well. It's messy. Obviously, there are people at SVA who are full pay and very talented, but this is generally what I and my peers have observed and what I have learned while working in the admissions office. Animation school is already notorious for being hyper competitive and toxic, but I'm sure you can imagine what happens at a school as prestigious, and I say prestigious in quotation marks because I think that's like BS, at a program so well known where there is such a drastic difference in the skill level among students. There is a huge culture of alumni and upperclassmen worship at SVA, as well as a general air of jealousy and insecurity among many of the people there, as well as a lot of classism, which I experienced a lot of and I will get into later. In all honesty, I think recruiting people with lots of money but a low skill level to a prestigious program and then forcing them to make 4 films without teaching them the artistic fundamentals that they need to make a good film is exploitative. I think the cost of tuition itself, the lack of scholarships, is also exploitative, as the animation program places less emphasis on the actual class instruction rather than making a film every year, which is something that you can do at home for free. I worked so many admissions and orientation events while at SVA, and throughout all of them, the students were basically being promised that coming to SVA would secure them a job in the industry, and that SVA students are the best without any acknowledgement of the destructive costs that they were paying to be there. And I know from personal experience that many, many, many of the students there believe that coming to SVA is their sole ticket into the industry because that's what they've been told. And that's kind of what this large, very strong and intense marketing strategy that many animation schools have promised young impressionable kids, like me. And then because they are constantly being glazed and gaslit by their department, they're deluded into unrealistic perceptions of their own art and the state of the industry, which in turn sets them up for failure. SVA acknowledges that the animation industry is in the dumps right now, but they assure us fully that, it'll come back and then we'll come back on top. And by the time we graduate with our degree, everything is going to be okay. Statistically speaking, animation school and the animation industry itself is already completely overcrowded, and there is just not enough room for all of us to have a job as amazing as that would be, and as much as we all want that to happen. We all want to get a job in the industry. I want everyone who wants it to be able to do that. It's just not realistic, and it is very harmful when a school that is supposed to help its students is not acknowledging the ways in which it actually may be hurtful to its students for them to continue attending because it is so incredibly expensive and no aid is offered. And that's harsh. That's a harsh criticism to make, but this is true not only at SVA, but other art and animation schools as well. SCAD is a big example that I can think of. And I really do encourage all of you watching to share your experiences and opinions in the comment section of this video because after all this is just my observation and my experience, and by all means there are so many talented students at SVA, and this absolutely does not apply to them, and it doesn't apply to everybody there, you know. But this is also by far not an opinion that I am alone in sharing. I also don't want to discredit the animation program as a whole because it is very, very capable of setting up students for industry success. It is amazing at bringing in industry professionals and connecting them with us, the students, but they are also obsolete to students who do not have the skill level to secure industry level work and are not being supported by the school in order to get to that level. They're relying on the school to make those things happen for them, and the school does not acknowledge the ways in which us as individuals are almost entirely responsible for the opportunities that come our way. It becomes exploitation when SVA as a whole does not acknowledge this, and continues to recruit students based on financial status instead of skill and promise them success, while also making light of the intense workload that they give their students and even making it a selling point of the school itself at admissions events, sometimes even boasting that students do upwards of 30 hours of homework a week. And while I'm here, I should talk about the school's AI issues. The school allows AI art in your portfolio, and admissions officers are not allowed to turn down students or reject them because they have AI artwork in their portfolio. SVA sells generative AI workshops online for multiple hundreds of dollars. Many majors at SVA allow students to use AI in their work and sometimes even force them to, and also promote it and exhibit it at the school. Uh, yeah, it's really bad. And I recently, like back in May, held a little protest, a little listening group because they established this AI working group thing. And we recorded the whole discussion, and I think if you're wanting to go to SVA, you should watch it. It's a Google Drive link. It's about 2.5 hours long, maybe 2 hours long. It's just a listening thing. It's an audio file. And in that discussion, nothing was done. And about 50 or 60 students did chant in unison, "I will leave SVA if you do not ban generative AI." So if that's something you should know. And also the faculty union is currently working to bargain with SVA to not allow them to use AI to teach classes. So they're very pro AI, and the most of their student body isn't. They also keep recruiting people who are because they're just gonna pay them money, and it's so disgusting, and they won't do anything. And they reached out to me specifically, the provost office, to set up a Zoom meeting with students to talk about this, and then I was like, yeah, sure. And then the day after, they canceled my SVA email, deleted everything in my Google Drive, and ghosted me when I tried to email them from my personal address. So they don't really care about what we have to say as students, and if that's an issue for you, because it should be, you should definitely take that into consideration if you're considering attending or applying. I should probably talk about the positive aspects of my experience there, and I did have a positive experience there. Overall, there were a lot of positive things about my time there. The professors at SVA are genuinely so incredible, and I really owe so much of my experience as a transfer and as a student to their classrooms and their mentorship. They are seriously the heart of the school. SVA wouldn't be what it is without them. And if you're a student, you should go support the SVA Faculty Union. They are currently bargaining with the school on multiple different items that are very important to both the faculty and also the well-being of the students, one of them being AI's incorporation into the curriculum of the school. Despite having a lot of characters, I did find a really great community within SVA, and a lot of other people have as well. It's super small, very close knit, and there are some very, very kind and talented people there whom I love dearly. Working for the admissions office and their media team was also gave me a crazy amount of connection across the entire school, from the student body to the faculty, that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And the students at SVA are incredibly passionate and eager to enact change. And just because they have chosen to stay does not mean that they are complacent in SVA shortcomings, which, include like the administrative issues, the curriculum issues, ties to Jeffrey Epstein, AI promotion, and education. I think many, if not most, of the issues with SVA that I've stated are not solely SVA issues, but rather lie within the general structure and culture of animation school as a whole. I also participated in a different video that I'll link in the description where I and some other students talk as a group about this. I think that's also worth checking out. But anyway, to make this section of the video a little bit more coherent, I'm going to list these points and tackle them each individually before I talk about why, for me personally, animation school was not good for me or my goals. Number one, most animation schools are heavily focused on a corporate work environment, leading to overworking and complacency and corporate abuse, overworking, and unethical practices. This is not a unique point to make. If anything, it's probably kind of obvious, but so many videos exist on this topic that just kind of laugh at this and move on. But I actually want to dive into this a little bit. In my personal opinion and observation, the goal of most animation educations, as well as many animation students, is to get a major studio job in the industry, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that. However, these jobs have been historically plagued by issues with overworking, underpayment, poor treatment, dating all the way back to the early days of the Fleischer and Disney studios. Unsurprisingly, that has not changed, and because it has not changed, it has become very normal for schools to overwork their students to prepare them for an industry that will do the same. Now, personally, I did not ever pull an all-nighter in my first year of animation school, and I don't think anyone should pull an all-nighter either, ever, and I don't think that they're necessary. However, things like that are very, very common and very normalized in animation school and are often encouraged and joked about by some people in charge of the programs themselves, which is something I've also witnessed because I've had to joke about this for the SVA TikTok. Some people say it's not that deep, but no, I think it is that deep. I know so many people, including myself, who have developed lifelong physical health problems, including arthritis, carpal tunnel, and permanent nerve damage due to the sheer amount of stuff that we have to draw on a weekly basis. I got carpal tunnel during my application process at 16 years old. I will live with this condition for the rest of my life, and it's only going to get worse. During Accepted Students Day at SVA, our admissions director proudly announced that some students do upwards of 30 hours of homework a week. And he said that as a positive aspect of the college to highlight how intense the workload is and how good of a school that makes SVA just because we make you do a lot of work. 30 hours a week is nearly a full time job. I had 22 hours total of class during the week, plus at least 15 hours of part time work, sometimes up to 30 hours of part time work a week in order to pay my tuition to go to class. With the stated amount of 30 homework hours a week, which is accurate, that is about 82 hours of some kind of work for any given week of my or anyone else's education. 3.5 days of nothing but work. Subtracting 82 hours plus the recommended 8 hours of sleep a night from the 168 hours in a week, that leaves 30 hours left over to do literally everything else, aka 4 hours per day to eat 2 to 3 meals, do your laundry, maintain personal hygiene, grocery shop, clean your room, and participate in social activity. Please give me one good reason as to why that should be as normal as it is. It is a miracle that I didn't pull any all nighters. And that's mostly because I got very, very lucky with the professors that I had. I think it is very, very dangerous to normalize this for young people, and I think it is even more dangerous to normalize it for them as adults and encourage them to idolize animation studios and companies for career prospects that have been consistently laying off artists, as well as using AI in their studio projects, those being Paramount, Netflix, Disney, Sony. Indie studios even have a different problem with being generally unregulated when it comes to workers' rights, as many are still new and in the process of being unionized. Spindle Horse, for instance, which is a relatively new indie animation studio founded by SVA alumnus is actually currently under investigation for allegedly illegal layoffs and labor practices. It is not wrong to work at any of these studios. Everybody needs to make money, everybody needs to make a living, and you wanna do it doing something that you enjoy. And it's not wrong to want to pursue studio animation as a career, because many people do, and I will probably end up in a studio animation job at some point as well. What is wrong is that normalizing these behaviors and ignoring them discourages animation students who grow up to be animation workers from enacting change. If it's stigmatized to speak out against worker abuse and corporate exploitation out of fear of losing your job, those things will never change, and the people at the top will continue to benefit. Number two, this is an issue with college in general, but animation schools will absolutely gaslight you and groom you into thinking that the cost of their education is worth it into taking out large amounts of student loans. There is this belief that many animation students, including so many that I know personally, have, which is that because you go to so and so school, you're automatically going to make it. The statistic my professors at SVA gave us was 2% of each graduating class actually ends up getting a job in the animation industry. Everyone, including myself, at one point, will think that they are the exception. Animation school, especially the one I was at, does not encourage the students to pursue a plan B. Students are often told that they are in good hands and that they are about to join the most successful group of alumni in the world. Those are direct quotes. SVA or any other school is not your ticket to success. That is 100% on you and what you make of the resources they give you. You can absolutely benefit from going to a college for animation, but it is not going to guarantee you success, nor is it going to make or define your career and you as a person. Number three, animation school is oversaturated and hypercompetitive, which breeds intense levels of insecurity and toxicity. I did already touch on this, and I will again, so I don't want to spend too much time on it here, but I did have multiple people affirm this experience, specifically in schools with higher acceptance rates like SVA, SCAD, and state schools. Lower confidence in your art tends to lead to lower confidence in yourself as a person, and consequently affects interpersonal relationships and overall attitudes towards yourself and others. Number four, animation cannot accurately be taught without first teaching fine art fundamentals and film literacy separately. This is a weird opinion that I have that I don't think gets a lot of consideration. So I wanted to bring it up because I haven't heard a similar sentiment anywhere else. So naturally, animation is the combination between visual art and film, and both skills are required in order to make successful, appealing animation. You cannot make good animation if you can't draw well, and you also can't make good animation if you can't make good films. Most animation curriculums teach animation by itself, with very little art fundamental practice beforehand, and most of the time, no film history, theory, or literacy classes. Having been thrown straight into animation with both art fundamentals and prior filmmaking experience, I think both are 100% necessary to even start animating. And I think people would find that their stuff turns out so much better when both of those wells of knowledge are developed before diving into animation. I don't think it's a plus when schools throw you straight into animation before even teaching you fundamental anatomy, acting, or shot staging, or at least ensuring via the application process that you know how to do those things. And of course, it doesn't apply to every school, but it does apply to SVA and many other schools, which is therefore why I'm mentioning it. I really did not want to be at art school anymore. I thought it was for me, and it just really wasn't, and that's fine. I felt like I was too weird to fit in with normal people, but also too normal to fit in with most animation students. I was pretty consistently ridiculed for being from Kentucky and being low income. I was called white trash, inbred, and my accent was mocked in front of my face on a pretty consistent basis. Most people there were not low income, which made it hard to find people to relate to, because most people were really out of touch and would ask me things like why I had to transfer instead of taking out more loans, or why don't your parents pay for your tuition, or why do you work so much? A lot of negative comments were also made about my younger age and dating a guy only 2 years older than me, basically infantilizing me, acting like I had less maturity than people only a few months older than me, making weird, inappropriate sexual comments about my relationship, mostly said to me by men. There was also a lot of hostility towards me wanting to transfer because a lot of people around me took it personally, that I didn't feel like SVA was the place for me. Someone even said to me once to get the fuck out already and give your spot to someone who deserves it. I could seriously go on for ages about everything that has been said to me and other people at my school that just kind of exemplifies this issue, but I don't think it's necessary. I just wanted to highlight these things because speaking with other students is actually not an uncommon thing among animation schools for these kinds of people and attitudes to exist, especially because animation is a predominantly male dominated field professionally, but also a female dominated degree. It's also not really talked about because most of the people speaking about animation school online are people who have never experienced this because they are upper class, because most people who have the resources to go to animation school are. I went into SVA knowing I would have to transfer because of financial reasons, but I didn't go in thinking that I wouldn't like it. I wanted to like it. I was so excited to be there. And I had dreamed about it for years. And I was so disappointed when I slowly began to just not like it. I had an overall positive experience. I did, but that doesn't mean that the issues I've discussed so far were able to be ignored. I spoke with multiple instructors of mine about my circumstances and the overall state of the industry and SVA, and there was a general conclusive agreement among myself and all of them that what was best for me was to leave. I made great friends there. I love my professors. I love New York. It was hard to be disappointed. It was hard to struggle. It was hard to give up on the things I did love about being there after only experiencing them for such a short time. In full truth, I never wanted to be in a situation in which I had to transfer, but life doesn't turn out the way you want, and sometimes you have to try again. I applied to USC's animation program last year when I was about like 15 or 16. I was rejected. Obviously, the program only takes 16 people, so that was kind of expected, but I was very disappointed because USC covers 100% of demonstrated financial need for its students, which is a lot for me. I also initially was going to reapply to CalArts experimental animation program, but due to current issues with AI and their president, I decided that I wasn't going to follow through with it. During my transfer process, I was gradually learning that animation school wasn't where I wanted to be, even if my goals are still to eventually be directing animated, especially stop motion films. I reapplied to USC primarily because of their financial promise, but I slowly fell in love with the culture of the school and how open and cross-disciplinary their curriculum is, as well as its location in Los Angeles, which is where I've always wanted to live. I'm also a very academic person, and I have a lot of extracurricular interests like orchestra, quiz bowl, and community service that I've done my whole life that I could do at USC but not at SVA or at any other art school. And so I switched my major as well. I'm a fine arts major now. During my application, USC canceled its master's in experimental animation or expanded animation, which was heavily intertwined with their bachelor's in animation and through which all experimental and stop motion classes were offered. I did not like this decision at all, and neither did anybody else. USC's animation program is also AI friendly, not in the application, but in the program itself, and I didn't want to deal with that again. I also wouldn't have been able to graduate on time in their animation program, on top of the fact that all of my required classes would have been 3D and 2D animation, which is not what I want to do anymore. Over the course of my application, I realized that I wanted to do physical fabrication and production work, not just for animation, but for all kinds of film. And I wanted to do everything but animate. I really don't like animating. Well, so while I had already submitted an application to the animation program, I decided to reapply again in the same year to the fine arts program, which is an open major that offers classes in digital painting and sequential arts similarly to the animation major, but also allowing me to take things like painting and printmaking and sculpture, all of which are things that I enjoy. I ended up being accepted to fine arts as my major of choice, yay, and was offered around $80,000 a year in scholarships, leaving my total cost of attendance around $13,000 a year, which is a third of what it was at SVA. Because fine arts is an open major, we have built-in space for minors, and since I have more than 30 credits transferring it, I have space for 2 minors, so I decided to minor in cinematic arts and screenwriting, both of which would technically allow me to receive a bachelor's of arts in film production through their credit requirements, which I would do if I wanted to do a second senior capstone, which I don't, so I'm just going to keep it to the 2 minors for now. And even though I'm not majoring in animation, I still have opportunities to make films through clubs like Onion Skims and Filmmaking Club, and industry opportunities through Women in Animation and other organizations. I don't want to do just animation. And if I go to an art school for an animation major, I pretty much just do animation. That's what you spend 90% of your time doing. I want a real college experience. I want to meet people from diverse backgrounds and areas of interest, and I also want to meet people who are like it. absolutely killed me at SVA that I couldn't do things like paint, and I couldn't even spare a moment to devote my time to making a painting outside of my classwork. I sacrificed so much of what I love, for my career, and then when I finally understood that my education and my career can be different, or at least separate, genuinely changed my life and my entire perspective on college as a whole. I only get one opportunity to pursue my education, and I don't want to waste it on something that I don't enjoy. I can work any job. I can do social media like I have been doing. I can work in animation. I can work in galleries. I can work in film. I can work in freaking fast food if I wanted to. But I can't always go back to school if I didn't get what I wanted out of my education the first time. I have a great opportunity to study at one of the best schools in the country, if not the world, for almost free, and I don't want to waste that. My art and my career inform each other, but they do not have to be codependent or permanently intertwined if I don't want them to be. And they do mostly develop independently of each other. My career serves my art. My art does not serve my career. If I want my career to be my art, that's amazing. But that art isn't getting made for the sake of the career. The career is getting made off of my art. I made this video because nearly everyone who was making these, like art school is a scam videos, is speaking from the perspective of someone who took the risk and benefited from it, or were financially well off enough to where it wasn't even a risk at all. I want to be the voice that's like, I took a risk and it was not worth it, because it wasn't. It wasn't worth it. As good or as bad as my year at SVA was, none of it was worth taking on $36,000 of debt to do. That's not normal. That's not okay. And it's more damaging and crippling to you and your career than not going to school ever will be. If you are in a position where the cost doesn't matter, great, go for it. But if it does matter, please consider that over everything else. Everything is so expensive right now, especially college, and it's only going to get worse as enrollment declines and applications go down. Please just go where you can afford. You will be happy anywhere, and if you're not, you can always transfer. And along with doing what's best for your wallet, you also need to do what's best for you. And this is a pivotal change making time in your life. And the only person who can decide what you should do with it is you. You will regret it forever if you don't scratch whatever's itching you and at the very least try to follow your goals and your aspirations. I may fault myself for taking out so much money in loans, but I felt like I owed it to myself to at least try to make that work and just to see what I could get out of just the 1 year I had. I don't regret it in the end, but I wish I had left myself with more options despite not regretting it. It was still not worth what I paid for. It's perfectly okay to try something like I did and then realize that it's not for you. It's okay to change your mind, your goals, and your path. You should follow your gut. You should follow what feels authentic to you, and please don't be afraid to transfer if you really feel like you should. Because, also, in total honesty, what college you go to does not define you. No college will guarantee you success. All colleges are there to make money off of you, and they all have flaws. None of them are perfect angel institutions that are just untouchable and unbeatable. College is a resource for you to use, not for them to use you. There are just as many people in the industry who come from big name colleges as there are people who didn't go to animation school at all. And don't be mean. True good friends are not jealous of or malicious towards each other. They don't put you down or insult you. They support you and they want to see you succeed just as much as they do themselves. And it is so important that we all collectively fight toxicity in animation and in college, and everybody should try to be that good friend for someone else. It makes a world of difference to know that there are people in your corner who want to help you. You should reach out to and connect with as many people as possible while you're in school and while you're working. It is definitely not good to be an introvert in animation, even though I know a lot of people are. Connections are one of the most valuable tools to have in school and outside of school, and I cannot stress enough how important it is to put yourself out there and talk to other people. I think you should always keep your options open, and I think even if you do go to a school that you love, I think everybody should really take the time, take a moment and reflect and really think, like, is this what's best for me? Is this what I want? Because overall, obviously, doing something that you can afford is the most important thing, but it's your life and your life is meant to be fulfilling to you. And that is also equally as important. All of this comes from like the most true like place in my heart. Like I wish I had a video or something like this when I was applying because I just feel like so many people are just like, yeah, I did it and it was fine for me. So I mean, if you want to do it, that's also your decision. Like there's not people who are hurting because of like these issues and because of how expensive school is and because of like these exploitative predatory marketing practices that all colleges and student loan people push on impressionable 16-year-olds like me. I want to be the voice telling you no. I want to be the voice telling you that under no circumstances you should take out a huge loan to go to school, and under no circumstances you should do something that hurts yourself or your family in order to do that. It's a bad idea. It's just a terrible idea, and don't do it. Avoid it at all costs. It doesn't matter. The school doesn't matter. You just shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it at all. Everyone has their place in postgraduate education, and it doesn't matter how much money you have or where you're from. You deserve to be there and you deserve to be educated. And if you're there as well, you're just as equally deserving as everyone else in that room. Don't let yourself succumb to imposter syndrome. Everyone has potential. Everyone can do something amazing with their lives, and it's really up to you to make that happen. I'm taking an alternate route, and that's okay, and that's better for me, and it's more fulfilling for me, and it's making me happier. I think more people should be encouraged to do that. You can do whatever you want. You can just do whatever you want. Like you just can't. Like you have free will. You know, we all have free will, and I think we should all use that a little bit more. But yeah, I don't really think I have anything else to say. I just want to thank you all for watching and listening to me yap, and please do discuss everything in the comments and create a discussion. That's all I want to do. I want to create a discussion and like help people out. Please leave your experiences down below, and be nice, be respectful, don't disparage anybody. We're all here to help each other. We're all a community. I vlog and document like all of my college experiences, so if you want to check out some of those, look at my channel, subscribe maybe. Yeah, you do whatever you want. You have free will. Take care of yourself, and I hope that whoever you are, you find success personally and professionally, and that you make the choices that you want to make in order to live a happy and fulfilling life. And I hope all of you have an amazing day. And I wanted to thank you for listening to me, yeah, for like however long this video is, because I don't know. Okay, bye.